Why Illinois prisons are always over capacity. There are places in Illinois where the lights never fully go out. Long after midnight, while most neighborhoods sleep, movement continues behind concrete walls and steel doors. Officers change shifts beneath cameras. Radios crackle in narrow corridors. Count sheets are checked again. A transport bus may arrive carrying men who have already spent hours in shackles, only to reach a prison that has no real space left to give them. Inside some housing units, cells built for one person hold two. Day rooms stay crowded from morning until lock-in. Tempers rise over noise, showers, food trays, phone time, and respect. Men sleep only a few feet from strangers they did not choose. Officers walk tiers where one small argument can become a medical emergency in seconds. And yet this has happened for years. How does a state with one of the largest correctional systems in America remain trapped in a cycle of overcrowding? Why do Illinois prisons seem to operate at the edge of capacity again and again? And what happens to discipline, safety, and human behavior when there is never enough room? Because what happens inside those walls is not only a prison story. It is a warning about pressure. Before we begin, subscribe and comment where you are watching from. To understand overcrowding in Illinois prisons, you first have to understand the geography of incarceration. Illinois is a state of major cities, industrial towns, suburbs, farmland, and long rural stretches. Much of the state's crime and arrest volume has historically centered around dense urban areas, especially the Chicago region. But many state prisons were built far away, in rural communities where land was cheaper, jobs were needed, and large facilities could be placed far from city centers. That created a pipeline. Arrests and sentencing often begin in urban counties. Long-term incarceration often happens hours away. Families, lawyers, and support systems are separated by distance. And once people enter the prison system, they enter institutions built across different decades, under different political climates, with different assumptions about how many people would be housed there. Some prisons were designed when populations were smaller. Some were expanded quickly during tougher sentencing eras. Some aged without full modernization. Some became crowded almost as soon as they opened. From the outside, it may look like a network of buildings. Inside, it functions more like a pressure system. When one facility fills, people are moved elsewhere. When another lacks staff, transfers slow down. When intake rises faster than release, the pressure builds across the whole state. And eventually, every unit feels it. Prison overcrowding does not begin at the prison gate. It begins in courtrooms. Every prison bed starts as a case file. A robbery charge. A weapons offense. A drug case. A probation violation. A repeat felony sentence. A parole revocation. A plea agreement that trades trial risk for guaranteed time. For decades, many American states adopted harsher sentencing policies in response to crime fears, political pressure, and public demand for accountability. Illinois moved through parts of that same era. Longer terms, stricter release structures, sentence enhancements, and policies that reduced discretion all influenced how long people remained incarcerated. That matters more than most people realize. The public often focuses on admissions, how many people go in. But prison administrators watch length of stay just as closely. If thousands of people each stay one extra year, the effect is massive. If release mechanisms slow down, beds vanish quietly. If parole options narrow or supervision returns people to custody quickly, numbers rise without dramatic headlines. A prison system can become overcrowded even when admissions are stable. Because exits matter as much as entries. And when both move in the wrong direction at the same time, overcrowding stops being temporary. It becomes structural. Imagine arriving at prison already exhausted. Hours in transit. Hands restrained. Uncertainty about where you are going. Then the bus stops, the gates close, and officers begin processing names. But inside the institution, there is a problem no one on the bus can solve. There are more people arriving than clean, stable housing spaces available. That does not always mean there are literally zero beds. It often means something more complicated. The open bed may be in a unit already strained by tension. The open bed may require moving someone else first. The open bed may be in a medical wing not suited for general housing. The open bed may be hours away at another prison. So intake slows. Transfers stack up. County jails wait. Men remain in temporary holding longer than expected. From the outside, overcrowding sounds like a statistic. Inside, it looks like people waiting with property bags in their hands while staff search for room that does not truly exist. The most visible sign of overcrowding is often the cell itself. Many prison cells were built for single occupancy. One bed. One desk. One toilet. One person's limited property. One mind dealing with confinement. Then two men are placed inside. Now there are two sleep schedules. 2 hygiene routines, 2 personalities, 2 legal histories, 2 fears, 2 sets of anger, and almost no space between them. One may want silence. One may talk all night. One may be meticulous. One may be chaotic. One may be serving decades. One may be brand new and terrified. In free society, conflict often cools through distance. You leave the room. You take a walk. You close a door. In a prison cell, there is nowhere to go. That is why minor irritations become serious tensions. Shoes touching property. Using another person's soap. Flushing at night. Snoring. Staring too long. Taking the better shelf. Borrowing without asking. None of these sound dangerous outside prison walls. Inside a crowded cell, they can start fights. And what happens next can spread beyond that one room. For correctional officers, overcrowding transforms the job from difficult to relentless. Every movement takes longer with more people. Count takes longer. Meal release takes longer. Medication lines take longer. Shower rotations take longer. Searches take longer. Escorts to healthcare, segregation, visitation, and court all require staff time that may already be scarce. Then there is visibility. One officer can monitor a manageable unit. But when numbers rise beyond intended design, blind spots multiply. Noise masks warning signs. Tensions form faster than they can be read. Veteran officers often describe sensing problems before seeing them. A sudden quiet in a normally loud day room. Too many men gathering around one table. A stare that lasts too long. Someone refusing chow unexpectedly. Rumors traveling tier to tier. These signals matter. But fatigue dulls perception. Mandatory overtime, staffing shortages, and constant pressure wear people down. A tired officer may miss what a fresh officer notices immediately. And in prison, missing the moment before violence matters more than reacting after it starts. Even food service becomes a daily stress test. Prisons feed large populations on strict schedules. Meals are timed, movement controlled, and built around order. But when populations exceed comfortable limits, dining systems strain quickly. Lines get longer. Seats turn over faster. Portions are scrutinized more closely. Delays trigger frustration. A tray dropped on the floor can stall an entire line. Someone believes another unit got more food. Someone accuses kitchen workers of favoritism. Someone cuts ahead. Someone refuses to move. Many outsiders imagine prison violence begins with major gang plots or dramatic grudges. Sometimes it does. But just as often, conflict begins with repeated pressure over ordinary routines. A crowded chow hall is full of ordinary pressure. And after enough days, ordinary pressure becomes dangerous. When standard housing fills, institutions sometimes repurpose large spaces. Gyms, multipurpose rooms, open dormitories, rows of bunks separated by narrow aisles and almost no privacy. To administrators, this may create capacity. To the people sleeping there, it often creates exposure. Every conversation is overheard. Every movement is noticed. Every missing item becomes a public accusation. Sleep is lighter because noise never fully stops. There are no solid doors to close. No true retreat. Open housing also changes social order. In cells, conflict may stay between two people. In dorms, dozens witness everything. Reputation spreads fast. Weakness is tested faster. Debts are harder to avoid. Alliances become more important. Some adapt. Some dominate. Some break quietly. And because so many eyes are always watching, dignity becomes scarce. One of the least visible consequences of overcrowding is the disappearance of purpose. Prisons often advertise educational classes, vocational programs, substance treatment, cognitive counseling, and reentry preparation. These programs can reduce violence inside and improve outcomes after release. But when populations swell and staffing thins, security needs come first. Officers are reassigned from programs to housing units. Movement is restricted. Class sizes are capped. Schedules are cancelled. Rooms sit empty because there is no one to escort participants. That leaves thousands with idle hours. Idle time in prison is not neutral. It feeds anxiety. It feeds resentment. It feeds gambling, debt, politics, rumor, and conflict. A man learning a trade is occupied by progress. A man sitting in a crowded day room every day may be occupied by frustration. Overcrowding often removes the very systems meant to stabilize prison life. When state prisons fill, the consequences spread outward. County jails may end up holding sentenced inmates longer while waiting for transfer into state custody. Those jails were often designed for shorter-term detention, pretrial housing, and local case movement, not long-term overflow from the state system. So pressure moves downstream. Beds needed for new arrests are occupied. Medical costs rise. Behavior issues grow. Sheriffs complain about delays. Taxpayers in local counties absorb part of a state problem. This is how overcrowding escapes prison walls. It becomes a system-wide burden. And because most people never see these transfer bottlenecks, the problem can remain politically invisible for years. Distance creates another kind of overcrowding cost. Many incarcerated people come from families in northern urban counties. Yet they may be housed hours away in central or southern Illinois. That means a mother may need an entire day and significant money to visit for a few hours. A child may grow up seeing a parent rarely, not because contact is unwanted, but because travel is punishing. A spouse may slowly stop coming. When facilities are crowded, transfers happen more often and placement flexibility shrinks. People may be sent wherever a bed opens, not where family ties are strongest. That matters because family contact often reduces disciplinary problems and supports reentry success. Overcrowding can quietly weaken one of the strongest stabilizing forces prison systems have. Not by policy. By distance and scarcity. Inside prison, access becomes currency. Phone time. Good job assignments. Lower bunks. Decent seats in chow. Cleaner shower times. These things seem small outside. Inside, they carry real value. Phones are especially powerful because they connect confinement to life beyond it. A 10-minute call can hold news about a child, a parent's illness, rent problems, loyalty, betrayal, hope. When too many people need too few phones, conflict follows. Someone stays over time. Someone cuts the list. Someone claims priority. Someone says the officer favors certain people. And behind each argument is something deeper than the phone itself. It is fear of losing connection. Overcrowding turns emotional necessities into scarce resources. That is a dangerous formula in any closed environment. When violence erupts or rules are repeatedly broken, prisons rely on disciplinary housing to separate threats. But overcrowded systems strain those units too. Who truly needs removal? Who can be managed in general population? How long can someone remain there if beds are full elsewhere? Restrictive housing may calm one unit while creating pressure in another. Extended isolation can carry mental health consequences. Returning someone too soon can reignite conflict. These are not simple decisions. In crowded systems, every option costs something. And often the staff making those calls are doing so under constant shortage, public scrutiny, and immediate risk. Healthcare may be the most serious overcrowding issue of all. Prisons hold people with diabetes, heart disease, addiction histories, trauma, serious mental illness, chronic pain, infections, and aging bodies worn down by hard lives. When populations rise, healthcare demand rises with it. But clinics do not automatically double in size. Nurse staffing does not magically appear. Secure hospital transports require officers who may already be covering housing units. So delays happen. Medication lines stretch. Appointments get rescheduled. Mental health caseloads climb. A tooth infection becomes an emergency. Untreated depression becomes a crisis. Psychosis becomes a security incident. Overcrowding turns medical problems into operational problems, and operational problems back into medical ones. People often ask whether overcrowding causes riots. Usually, no single factor causes a major disturbance. Riots require leadership, grievance, opportunity, timing, rumor, weak control, and emotional momentum. But overcrowding can strengthen several of those conditions at once. More frustration. More idleness. More strained staffing. More unresolved conflict. More movement complexity. More belief that no one is listening. That is why administrators fear chronic pressure even when daily operations appear calm. Silence inside prison is not always stability. Sometimes it is accumulation. Eventually, most incarcerated people return to society. But overcrowding affects release too. Case managers with too many files may have limited time. IDs may not be ready. Treatment continuity may fail. Housing plans may be weak. Job readiness may be minimal. A person can spend years in a crowded institution and walk out carrying little more than a bag and unresolved pressure. Then society asks why recidivism continues. The answer is never one thing. But conditions inside matter. They shape habits, stress levels, trust, skills, and readiness for freedom. So why are Illinois prisons always over capacity? Because no single reform created the problem. And no single reform will solve it. It is the result of decades of sentencing choices, uneven investment, aging buildings, mental health failures outside prison, poverty, violence, political hesitation, staffing shortages, and release systems that often move slower than admissions. Once overcrowding becomes normal, it creates new damage that feeds future overcrowding. That is the cycle. And tonight, somewhere in Illinois, another count is being called in another unit already full. Another officer is working overtime. Another family is driving hours for a short visit. Another man is waiting for a bed that technically exists on paper, but not in reality. Because the most dangerous kind of overcrowding is not when there are too many people in prison. It is when the system begins to believe that is normal. Morning inside an overcrowded prison begins before sunrise. Some men wake because they have discipline. Others wake because they never fully slept. In open dorms, one person coughing can wake 20 more. In double cells, one man climbing down from the top bunk at 4:30 in the morning means the other is awake too. Toilets flush. Metal lockers open. Shoes scrape concrete. Someone whispers a prayer. Someone curses the day before it begins. Then the loudspeaker activates. Count time. Every person must be accounted for. Every body in every bed matters. In a crowded institution, count is not routine paperwork. It is control itself. If the numbers are wrong, nothing moves. No breakfast, no showers, no work lines, no clinic trips. Officers walk slowly, checking faces against sheets, scanning bunks, making sure no one is hidden, missing, or in the wrong place. When prisons operate over capacity, even count becomes slower and more tense. There are more names, more temporary placements, more recent transfers, more housing changes, more chances for error. And in prison, errors create lockdowns. One wrong number can freeze an entire building. After count comes chow. Breakfast may be the fastest meal of the day, but in a crowded prison it can feel like controlled congestion. Hundreds of men move in waves through narrow corridors, stairwells, gates, and checkpoints. Everyone wants to get there first. Everyone wants to get out quickly. Some are hungry. Some are anxious. Some are already angry from the night before. Food inside prison carries emotional weight outsiders rarely understand. It is one of the few guaranteed events in a controlled life. Men remember portion sizes. They remember shortages. They remember who was served first and who was skipped. When numbers rise, quality often feels lower even when menus stay the same. Longer lines make tempers shorter. A tray with missing items can start an argument. An accidental shoulder bump can become a challenge. Someone staring too long can become disrespect. And disrespect, in prison culture, often matters more than the original incident. The kitchen is its own world. Some inmates fight hard for kitchen jobs because they offer movement, structure, and sometimes influence. Working around food can mean access to extra portions, schedule advantages, or barter opportunities. It can also mean waking earlier, harder labor, and constant scrutiny. In overcrowded systems, kitchen crews feed more people with the same space, same equipment, and often limited staff. That creates pressure behind the scenes. Meals must be prepared faster. Lines must move faster. Waste must be managed faster. Mistakes become more common. And when mistakes leave the kitchen, they arrive directly into housing units where frustration is already waiting. After chow, the day room becomes a map of prison society. Where people sit matters. Who sits together matters. Who avoids whom matters even more. In crowded prisons, day rooms become negotiation zones. There are televisions, tables, phones, microwaves in some facilities, bulletin boards, movement lists, and the constant search for somewhere to exist without conflict. Some men play cards. Some read. Some lift improvised weights. Some stare at the wall. Some watch everything. The new arrivals learn quickly that prison is built on visible rules and invisible rules. The visible rules are written by the institution. The invisible rules are enforced socially. Do not sit in the wrong seat. Do not interrupt certain conversations. Do not touch what is not yours. Do not ask too many questions. Do not appear weak. Do not appear reckless. And above all, understand who controls space. Overcrowding makes space more valuable, which means the politics around it become sharper. Phones are one of the clearest examples. In some units, names are written in order. In others, reputation decides the line. In others, officers intervene when disputes grow too loud. For a man inside, that call may be everything. It may be his child's birthday. It may be news from court. It may be word that a parent is sick. It may be the only person still answering. When too many people need too little access, desperation hides inside ordinary arguments. A man asking for just 2 more minutes may be asking for much more than time. And the people waiting know it. That is why phone disputes can become sudden and explosive. Even showers become calculated decisions. Some choose early morning to avoid crowds. Some choose late hours to avoid rivals. Some skip showers entirely on tense days. In overcrowded prisons, privacy disappears almost completely. Shared bathrooms, exposed routines, constant movement, these conditions can produce humiliation, paranoia, and aggression. A person who feels watched every hour of every day begins to change. He may become withdrawn. He may become hyper-alert. He may become confrontational before anyone challenges him. Psychologists have long noted that crowding affects behavior. In prison, where autonomy is already stripped away, the effect can be stronger. When there is nowhere private to decompress, stress accumulates publicly. Mental health units feel overcrowding differently, but no less severely. Many incarcerated people arrive carrying trauma long before their sentence begins. Violence, addiction, unstable housing, untreated illness, childhood abuse, street survival, grief. Prison does not erase these things. Often it intensifies them. When mental health staff are overloaded, care becomes reactive instead of preventive. Crises get attention. Quiet suffering waits. A panic attack may be mistaken for defiance. Depression may look like laziness. Paranoia may look like hostility. And in a security environment, misunderstood behavior often receives discipline before treatment. That is one of the hardest truths about overcrowded systems. The people most in need of stability often live in the least stable conditions. Infrastructure adds another layer to the crisis. Many prison buildings were not designed for modern populations. Plumbing systems strain under heavier use. Ventilation struggles. Heating and cooling systems fail. Showers wear out. Locks age. Roofs leak. Electrical systems demand upgrades. When a prison runs beyond intended use year after year, maintenance becomes triage. Fix what failed today. Delay what might fail tomorrow. Hope nothing major fails next week. The public often imagines prison as permanent and indestructible concrete. But these are buildings. Buildings age. Buildings break. Buildings become more dangerous when packed beyond design. A broken shower in a quiet unit is an inconvenience. A broken shower in an overcrowded unit is a catalyst. Then there is staffing. A prison can have beds on paper and still be in crisis if there are not enough officers to supervise them safely. Recruitment and retention have challenged correctional systems across the country. The work is stressful, politically unpopular, physically risky, and often exhausting. Long shifts, forced overtime, and constant tension drive many away. When staff numbers fall, overcrowding feels worse immediately. Housing units may lock down more often because movement cannot be covered. Programs cancel. Visits shorten. Searches decrease. Response times slow. Both officers and inmates become more frustrated. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Bad conditions push staff away. Lower staffing worsens conditions. Worse conditions push more staff away. And all of it happens while the population remains high. Families carry part of the burden too. Visiting a prison is rarely simple. Security checks, long drives, changing schedules, dress codes, delays, cancellations, weather, costs. For many families, each visit requires sacrifice. In overcrowded systems, visitation can become more difficult. Limited seating. Shorter sessions. Longer waits. Temporary suspensions after incidents. Transferred loved ones moved farther away. A child may not understand why visits stop. A spouse may lose hope. A parent may age out of making the trip. Yet family contact is one of the strongest factors linked to stability and successful re-entry. When overcrowding weakens that bond, the damage is not visible on any population chart. But it is real. There are also the men trying to change. Every prison has some. The one studying for exams. The one learning a trade. The one reading constantly. The one trying to stay clear of politics. The one writing letters home. The one determined never to return. Overcrowding punishes them too. Classes fill up. Movement gets cancelled. Libraries close early. Noise makes study impossible. Housing transfers interrupt progress. The person trying to rebuild himself must do so inside an environment increasingly designed just to contain numbers. That may be the most tragic waste of all. Because prison time passes whether growth happens or not. On the yard, population pressure becomes visible. Groups cluster by familiarity, neighborhood, race, age, or shared history. Not every prison yard is ruled by gangs, but every crowded yard has social order. Some men walk laps to stay sane. Some exercise. Some conduct business. Some settle scores. Some simply watch. The yard can feel calmer than indoor units because there is space and open air. But that same space also allows unresolved tensions to surface face to face. When too many grievances build inside cramped housing units, the yard may become where they are answered. That is why staff monitor body language so closely. One sudden sprint. One circle forming. One unusual silence. Sometimes those are the only warnings. When violence happens, overcrowding magnifies the aftermath. A fight between two men can trigger searches across an entire unit. A weapon discovery can lock down multiple buildings. A group conflict can cancel movement prison-wide. Now hundreds who had nothing to do with the incident lose showers, phones, yard, visits, classes. Resentment spreads. People blame each other. Rumors replace facts. And the institution must restore order while already stretched thin. This is how one incident in an overcrowded prison can poison the atmosphere for days. Sometimes weeks. By evening, fatigue settles differently across the compound. Officers are tired from constant vigilance. Kitchen workers are tired from labor. Men in cells are tired from noise and proximity. Men in segregation are tired from silence. Families outside are tired from worrying. Yet night can be more tense than day. Old grudges return when distractions end. Anxious thoughts grow louder in darkness. Some fear sleeping near cellmates they do not trust. Some fear what tomorrow brings. And some fear nothing at all, which can be more dangerous than fear. So why does this continue? Because overcrowding is easier to inherit than solve. Building prisons costs enormous money and years of planning. Closing prisons can remove needed beds. Sentencing reform is politically difficult. Re-entry investment requires patience. Mental health treatment outside prison requires sustained commitment. Staffing improvements require funding and trust. Every solution asks something now for benefits later. And politics often rewards now more than later. That is why many systems drift instead of reform. They manage crisis day by day. Until crisis becomes culture. Somewhere tonight in Illinois, another count is being called in another building already full. Another officer is walking a tier alone. Another man is trying to sleep 3 feet from someone he does not trust. Another family is waiting for a phone call that may never come. And another policymaker may speak about crime, punishment, budgets, or reform without ever hearing what overcrowding sounds like at 2 a.m. Steel doors. Raised voices. Running boots. A radio call. Then silence. And silence, inside prison, does not always mean peace. Behind every prison statistic is a human cost, measured in pressure, time, and lives changed forever. Illinois may still be searching for answers, but one question remains: when a system stays overcrowded for too long, who truly pays the price? If you found this story compelling, subscribe and stay with us for the next deep dive. Until next time, stay aware, because the truth is often hidden behind locked doors.